All right, so one thing you definitely need to understand for this system is the difference between breathing and respiration. When we say respiration, we are specifically referring to gas exchange, meaning the swapping or exchange of gases across a membrane. In other words, one gas will be going in one direction and the other gas will be going in the opposite direction across a membrane. Anytime that happens, we call it gas exchange, and the proper term for it is respiration. The two gases we're talking about, of course, would be oxygen and carbon dioxide. And we can refer to respiration in three different ways: external, internal, and cellular. So external respiration is the exchange of oxygen and CO2 across the membranes of your lungs. So your lungs are composed of empty sacs called alveoli. Each alveolus is surrounded in capillaries. And the empty sac, the alveolus, is the site of exchange with your blood capillaries in your lungs. They're called pulmonary capillaries. And so the gas that goes into your blood is oxygen, and the gas that leaves your blood at the lungs is carbon dioxide. Both of those gases move by simple diffusion from high concentration to low, right across those membranes, either into or out of the blood. So again, oxygen would go into the blood at the lungs, and CO2 would leave the blood at the lungs. That's called external respiration. So the only place in your body that external respiration happens is in your lungs. Internal respiration happens everywhere else, and it's the exchange between your blood and your body tissues. So, for example, let's imagine blood going up to your head. At your brain, for example, the blood would deliver oxygen to your cells and receive CO2 from your brain cells. That exchange of gases between, say, the brain and your blood is called internal respiration. And it doesn't just happen in your brain, it happens everywhere in your body except for your lungs. So in internal respiration, oxygen leaves the blood and goes into your tissues, and CO2 leaves your tissues and goes into the blood. Cellular respiration, as the name suggests, takes place inside of cells. And it's a series of chemical reactions, most of which take place inside the mitochondria of your cells. And the job of cellular respiration is to convert food into ATP. So, for example, a cell could convert sugar into an energy molecule called ATP. The reaction, or set of reactions, called cellular respiration, require a supply of oxygen, which is why we do the other forms of respiration, external and internal. It's to make sure that each of our cells gets a supply of oxygen. And also, cellular respiration creates a byproduct of CO2. And so that CO2 then needs to leave your cell because it's toxic, and it'll exit out the body thanks to internal and external respiration. So the whole purpose of external and internal respiration is to provide for your cell's ability to do cellular respiration, the conversion of food, the energy that's in food, into an energy molecule called ATP. So again, respiration always means gas exchange, swapping of oxygen and CO2. Breathing, on the other hand, is just the movement of air. The fancy term for breathing is pulmonary ventilation. That is simply the movement of air into and out of your lungs. All right, here's an artist illustration of the heart, the lungs, and body tissues. Make sure you understand where external and internal respiration takes place. External respiration happens in the capillaries of your lungs. Remember, the gas that will enter the blood is oxygen, and the gas that will leave the blood is CO2. Note that on this diagram, blood is color-coded blue if it is oxygen poor, and it's color-coded red if it's oxygen rich. Do keep in mind, however, that your blood is never blue. It's either a maroon, kind of a dingy red if it's deoxygenated, and it's a bright red if it's oxygenated. We simply use blue and red on diagrams just so you could tell the two blood types apart. All right, so external respiration happens at your lungs. Oxygen enters the blood, CO2 leaves the blood so that you can exhale it out. Internal respiration happens in the lower body and upper body, pretty much all body tissues except for lungs. And in internal respiration, oxygen is leaving the blood and going into our cells, while CO2 is exiting our cells and going into the blood.